Hey, welcome to Kevin Elworth Unplugged, where we talk about life, leadership, and all the things in between. My name is Kevin, and I am elated today to be able to talk to you about how to handle mistakes. Man, mistakes, something so frequent and common that we handle in our lives. And there is a proper way to plan through or process through what happens when we make a mistake. I want to walk you through one of the mistakes I made just recently and just kind of get you on board with how this goes down. And I want to kind of open your mind with this. This really relates to business as I want to um, kind of put before you today, but I also want to talk about it from a life standpoint because we make mistakes in life all the time. You know, even here this morning as I'm just preparing for this podcast, waiting for my house to quiet down, you're going to hear some background noise. My kids are feeding the dog, and I hear dog food going into the dog food bowl, and they're picking up trash, and they're doing their chores and all the things. And so you're going to kind of hear that. And so even as I'm preparing for this and I'm correcting a mistake that I made in my LLC filing with the state, and I have to file another document and pay another fee and all this stuff to create or fix a mistake that I made. And these things happen with regularity, and they happen by and large because of really several things. But most of the time, do you ever find that you make more mistakes when you try to rush a process? And you're not thinking through the entirety of it, or you don't give yourself enough time to handle what you need to handle, or even beyond that, you don't give yourself enough budget to handle it. And so you've got to rush the process because you didn't budget enough money for whatever it is to take. One of the temptations or the stresses that I feel is that I know my time is valuable, so I want to rush to something so I can get to something else. And in my rush, I often make mistakes. I'm constantly forgetting things, and if I would just slow down and take my time, I could avoid making mistakes, or better avoid them. One of the most glaring ones that I made happened about a year ago. It was November of 2022, and we had our first like big storm of the winter, and it was icing and snowing, and it was just nasty outside. And we're here. We helped a pretty key integral role in helping build and construct our home. And it was we were putting the kitchen in at the time, and me and my daughter were here at our house working, and I had driven my like work truck up here, and um, I'm watching the snow and ice come down, and all the while I'm knowing like I'm gonna have to drive through this at the end of the day, or whenever I decide the day is over, to get back to our home that we were staying in. And I'm like, you know what? It's fine. It's no big deal. We do this all the time. We live in Pennsylvania. This is what happens here. We're going to be all right. And so we get outside finally, and I decide around 3:30 in the afternoon. You can even tell it's already starting to get dark, but the ice is still coming down. I walked out to my truck, and I was like, I realized in that moment I've made a mistake. This is bad. I mean, the weather, the ice was so much worse than I thought it was going to be, and so I'm just cautiously telling my daughter, you know what, we're going to be okay. It's going to be fine. This happens all the time. I'm going to use this as a teaching moment. So I'm like, let's get in. And so we left, and we drive, and we're taking the back roads because I figured they would be better than any other. And, it's at this point, you're like, what do I got? You just make a choice and you go with it. So we're taking the back roads, and we were fine. We were slipping around a little bit, but ultimately it was okay. And so we got to this spot where there was this hill, so it went up and turned like that, and so you got to have a little bit of speed, because if you break traction on that, you're going to be in trouble. So I got a little speed going to go up this hill, and then I immediately started to turn left, and we lost traction, and we just started sliding, and we ended up, I tried to slam on the brakes, and nothing's happening. We're just sliding, and I was still going very slow, less than 20 miles an hour, and it was still too much. We just coasted right up into a tree, and right before we hit this tree, my daughter, 12 years old at the time, just lets out this scream, like this is her first accident experience, even though it's very, very minor. And thankfully, everybody was fine. It was no big deal. We hit a tree and dented up the front left fender and crushed my headlight, and shoved the front fender back into the door, so I couldn't even open my door, and the bumper's like touching the tire now. So now I can't even drive. I can't steer. I can't do nothing. And so I tried, I tried to back off the tree, and I tried to steer, and I couldn't turn at all because the bumper was hitting the tire. And And I now realize that I'm in a terrible situation. I've made a mistake, and now I'm going to have to make another mistake. And I didn't know there was nothing else I can do. The nature of mistakes is that you do what you have to do in the moment. And so what do you do when you're in problems, but you call family? And so here I am. I'm devastated with the fact that I'm going to have to call my wife and let her know I just got in a car accident. We're okay, but I need help. I can't get out of here. And so in that moment, I had to call my brother, who lives a good 30 miles south of us. And, he's got a four-wheel drive vehicle. And I'm like, dude, I need you to come get me. I need you to come help me get this out. And it just wrecked me that I was so foolish to not value my time, not value my safety, not value others' safety. And I made a mistake. I should have woken up that day and say, you know what? The potential for mistake is not worth it today. I'm not going to run this risk. I tend to be very risky in my life. And this was a risk I wish I wouldn't have taken. And so I rushed under pressure, and I rushed when I felt like I was up against a wall with different things, and I made some mistakes. My truck is still not fixed to this moment because honestly, I can't find somebody to work on it. It's an old truck. It probably needs one of those antique license plates because it's a 1993 Ford F-250, and it's trouble. It's not really worth putting money into. But what do you do when you make mistakes? When you're in business, when you're in life, and you've realized that you've made a mistake, what do you do? You need to get very honest with yourself. And I'm going to walk you through this process, and we're going to try to figure out how do we avoid this kind of thing in the past. Because what I'm realizing as I work with clients, as I work with people that are becoming high performance individuals, high performance business owners, leaders, they want to live a high performance life. What I'm recognizing is that mistakes are one of the most costly things that you're going to find in your business. I mean, let's face it, as your big business begins to grow, the mistakes that you make end up having multiple zeros on the end of it. And if you want to emphasize or expand, protect your profitability, you can do so by minimizing mistakes. Well, how do you do that? Well, firstly, I just want to submit to you this. If you made a mistake, you just need to admit that you've made a mistake. You need to admit your fault to yourself in this facet. I did this. No one else's fault. No one else is to blame for this. There probably are other people involved in the process, but ultimately, everything rises and falls on leadership, as my mentor John Maxwell says. So you need to own the fact that it was your fault. You are the one involved in this. Now, there may be some ways that you can chase this down and help corrective moments. It could be the fact that someone else was doing something and they did something to cause the mistake, and you're going to be ultimately the one that has to pay for it as the leader, owner, CEO, whatever, of this operation. And so, but honestly, you have to look at it as their mistake is my mistake. Could they have done it better? Is there a check and balance that wasn't in play that should have been in play that would have protected them from that? Or is it just the fact that you got a rogue person underneath you and they're making mistakes and it's costing you money? And then you got to evaluate that from a different facet. But admit to yourself, admit it. Let's figure out what is the cause of this. What's the thing? And then you need to be honorable with your follow through. Sometimes mistakes are promises that we've made that we eventually figure out, I should not have made that promise. And so what do you do with that? Well, you need to follow through. You need to do everything you can to be able to follow through on your word that, okay, I made a promise. It's not the promise I should have made. Either I under budgeted it or I undersold it, or this is just not even in my field. And I need to get out of this. You need to follow through. You need to do everything you can to be able to own up to the promise that you made. Keep your credibility intact. Your reputation is utmost importance to you. And so follow through, do what you promised. And then the last part of this is just, there's probably 3 different facets of learning that you need to do to navigate through this to the other side. So number 1, learn, get personal with yourself, your business, and figure out where you are avoiding structure that leads to mistakes. Okay. So what could those things be? Is there someone that needs to be involved in your business that will help you protect yourself and your business from your own costly mistakes? Ultimately, this is why there's a trifecta in business today that really needs to be upheld. I frequently find that it's a bifecta. Now, I don't think bifecta is a word, but I'm going to coin it for this moment. Um, but frequently you find businesses that it's a no-brainer to them. They have someone of a tax person, a CPA, a tax professional, a tax strategist. That's what I'm looking for in my world right now, a tax strategist, someone who can strategize through your tax implications and help you really maximize profitability based on the tax code. You don't need to know the tax code. You need to know someone who does know the tax code. So you've got that person in your back pocket. The next person I frequently, as I talk to business owners, the next person they bring up is their lawyer, their attorney. I'm going to call my lawyer, right? It's almost a given. They have one on speed dial, right? And there's one that, even in our community here, that I frequently am hearing people bump into and they talk about, and they're like, yeah, I'm going to call this guy. And so they've got a lawyer in their back pocket. The trifecta piece that most people don't have is me, a business coach, someone that you can call and you'd be like, all right, help me navigate through this. As a business coach, it's my job, it's my purview to help you get in your future where you want to get. I don't deal with your past. We're not going to fix your painful problem of your past. That's what a counselor does. My job is to help you take you where you are and get you to where you want to go. That's what a business coach does. It's like a life coach and all those things, but I keep this centered on a business level. I want you to help you go in business where you want to get in business. So that's what you're going to learn. You're going to get personal with yourself, your business, and figure out where are you avoiding structure that can lead to mistakes. The second thing you're going to learn is to take your time, to be cautious, to be thorough. One of the things that I don't know if that we've talked about this here, but I've talked about it in my networks, my entrepreneurs network and in my small business network. We talked about the idea of reflection just recently, and reflection is the idea of looking at the content of my recent past, evaluating what did I do yesterday that I need to repeat, or what did I do yesterday that I need to avoid, or I never need to do again. You do that on a daily basis. You can do it on a weekly basis. You should do it on a monthly basis, and really, 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 you should do a big one, a long one, on a yearly basis. The higher performance you are, the higher intensity you are, the longer that one needs to be. I know one guy who does a day a month. He takes a whole day every month to go and reflect. For me personally, I take 2 days, 3 days every year to be able to go away and just get into a place where I'm totally alone for 3 days, and I just get to reflect. Where have I been? Where am I going next? And it's in those moments that I can learn to be cautious and to be thorough, to be calculated, and then also figure out the vision of what needs to happen so that I can go where I need to go now. You learn to take your time. And then thirdly, you just learn to avoid mistakes. What are some things that you have repeated in the past that you should say, you know what, to protect myself from that, I'm going to learn from what I just did, and I'm going to not ever do that again. Is there a thing that you're over-promising that you should be saying, you know what, there's someone better than me to do this? And one of my clients, we were working with this just recently, and he realized that, you know what, if I just invite this person into this process, it's going to cost me some money. But in the end, they get it done faster than I could ever get it done, and they get it done with more excellence. So my customer is happy. So why wouldn't you want to do that? You're protecting yourself against a painful problem in your future. I want to submit to you this. Your ability to learn to avoid mistakes is one of the greatest areas where you will learn to increase profitability. Let me say it again. Your ability to learn to avoid mistakes is one of the greatest areas where you can increase profitability. If you just figure out how to stop losing money based on mistakes that you've made, you can really, really do well in your future. One of the things, as we kind of wrap this up today, one of the things that really I think is impactful is just stay in your lane. What are you best at? Stay best at that. I'm currently living through one of the mistakes that I made. I overpromised something, and now I have to follow through on it. It's distracting me. It's taking me away from my primary goal. And ultimately, it's the reason why I wanted to talk to you today about this, because I feel like I'm living one of these things right now. And the only way that I can navigate through it and get to a place of health and vitality in the end is by saying, you know what? I'm never going to do this again. I'm going to stay committed to the potential that I have in who I want to become, and know that it's going to take some time for me to get from here to there, but I've got to believe in myself for it. I can't question myself in that. I've got to stay faithful and consistent and constant with who I am becoming, knowing that it will be everything I want it to be, but it's going to take some time. What does that mean to you? Where are you at with this, and what have you wrestled with when it comes to mistake? Honestly, man, share your story. What is the mistake that you reflect on and that you look at and you learn and you're like, man, that was awful and I will never do that again. And I've learned from that. And this is what I've learned. These are some things that I've put in place to protect me from that. What's your mistake? Hey, thanks for joining me with me today in this. I hope and pray that as you move forward from here, that your mistakes are few and far between. There will be some, there will be others. And just one final thought, my mind just kind of races to the biblical precedent, the proverb that talks about, falling down 7 times and getting back up again. And that's this element is, I know I'm going to fail at this. I know there's going to be moments that I didn't do well, but I'm not going to give up on myself, on my belief, on my future, just because I made a mistake. I'm going to get up and move on. That is where success is found. Just recently, we talked about the idea of how to guarantee success. Well, you can guarantee success through consistency and through consistently getting up and moving on, even though you've made some mistakes. So I hope this has blessed, encouraged, and challenged you today. Be faithful in your process. And as always, don't ever hesitate to let me know how I can help. I pray you're well. Have a great day.